Well, hello everyone. Thanks for joining me. RPGs with DBJ. Every Friday, we do Eclipse Phase Friday to talk about futurism and post-humanism and transhumanism and anything in the future, especially as it in regards to the role-playing game Eclipse Phase, but not specifically the game, but just a lot of the theories in terms of thinking about the future and such. Usually I tend to not have a specific theme until like 5 minutes before I get online, which is why I'm a few minutes late. So sorry about that, guys. If you're joining me live, but it's because I was torn as to what I wanted to talk about today. So I'm not going to delve into this too much, but I did want to talk about something happening today in our modern society, and then how it relates to futurism and such. So currently in the news here in the States, we have a situation about the legality and the impact of blueprints and printing your own firearms. It's the ability in its current state, as far as I know it, and I'm not a huge person that's into this, but just following things in the media, that being able to print your own firearm allows you to print a firearm that is non-traceable, meaning that there's no record of its purchase per se, or having any identifying marks or serial numbers. Second of all, printing a firearm means that it's printed with materials that have a good chance of bypassing current abilities to detect it. So if something has the ability to detect certain types of metals or something, that a printed firearm is plastic, could be taken apart, possibly reassembled very easily, and because of the 3D printing process, could actually become a weapon that doesn't have the classic shape of a current modern day firearm, but someone could design something three-dimensionally that may fit together, that operates like a firearm without having the traditional look of like a six-shooter, pistol, or something of that nature, and yet is able to fire bullets. So we are confronting ourselves with the possibility of blueprinting, and how do you control blueprints? Is it freedom to own and disseminate a blueprint? What about the printing process itself? Can you just, for those who own a 3D printer, can you just print your own guns? Do you have to go to some place that has the specific materials? Do you have to find those specific materials that can handle the usage of using a firearm? High velocity, firing high velocity slugs, and then the quality of the blueprint. Can you account for the quality that the blueprint will print a firearm that doesn't crack or break or misfire or shatter in your hand, or can fire multiple times without melting or deforming? And then the ability for you to disseminate the already printed firearm. So now you've got the blueprint, you've printed out some guns. Can you and will you, and is there a chance that there's a market for people who are out to buy those firearms? Now, I'm going to go off of this subject here because it's quite politically charged. But I have a feeling that there's plenty of people that are in this debate that won't see the irony of a very dark and despicable event of having a ultra liberal anti-gun fanatic here in the States print themselves out a untraceable firearm, getting it past security, and then shooting someone who is a ultra conservative gun freedom nut. I mean, even I see that happening, or a possibility of happening, but I don't think either side is constructive enough concerning talking about the situation, to have something like that happen and have it change the narrative in a very dark and dramatic way. So let's get to the point. Let's talk about the real thing here. In the title, I decided to talk about factions, and in Eclipse phase, they have various like socio-political factions, and in many ways, these are like transhumanist beliefs, like what drives people forward in this world and what could drive your characters. And then in many ways, taking it even further, like what is it and where are we headed as a society, and the different factions, their beliefs in where society should head. So the factions are as listed in this game, and then we can just start to talk about them even further, are the Argonauts, which in short are the people that are explorers. Now in this game, there are things called Pandora gates that they found, which allow them, basically, it's like wormholes, or like the television show Stargate, where you go through a Pandora gate and you could transport yourself instantly from one place to another place in the galaxy, many, many light years away. We're talking tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of light years away, what have you, to other planets. But Argonauts, if you don't plan on or have no interest in using Pandora's gates, also represent the people who want to explore our own physical universe. There are also the Barsoomians. The Barsoomians are like the the rednecks, the outback, if you will, of those who live on Mars, that want to keep Mars red, that want to live in as Mars has become the new center of society, as opposed to Earth. Mars is like the new Earth. They want to keep it in its natural form, and live in that place in its natural form. And that thought, that desire to live in a place in its natural form and maintain, not to maintain the environment and then change yourself, has spread to other locations, whether living on asteroid belts or other moons and such. There's also the bioconservatives. The bioconservatives tend to be thought of as like the anti-transhumanists, which is not necessarily true. In many ways, they want those who are willing to accept that society is changing and evolving, want to do it in a very slow, methodical, hyper safe method, and test all of the technology instead of just jumping headlong into it. There are also the Brinkers. The Brinkers are the people who want to go as fast and as far out to the very edges of our solar system and beyond. These are people who live, Neptune and further, live in the Oort cloud, who are almost like deprivationists, where they're alone and by themselves or in small groups that live well away from what Sol, our star, and live in the hyper cold reaches of space. There's also the Exhumans, who want to develop themselves specifically to become the next evolution of humanity, almost dropping the idea of what humanity is and accelerating themselves far further into who we are and what we can be, whether it's digital life, and combining ourselves with AI, modifying our bodies to the point where we are like the apex predators of the universe and things of that nature. There's the Mercurials. The Mercurials are a combination of rogue AI and uplifted animals, and the idea that they are now part of humanity. There's the Nano-Ecologists. The Nano-Ecologists feel like using nanotechnology and terraforming, everywhere we go, we can take a place and turn it into where we live for humanity, using minimal methods of transforming ourselves, but instead transforming the nature of the place that we live in by terraforming it in some kind of way, shape, or form. There are preservationists. Preservationists are in the eclipse phase. Earth has been devastated, and these are people that want to bring back Earth. But preservationists are also people who want to preserve ancient cultures, languages, types of behavior, clothing styles, even ancient artifacts, to not forget about our past and to maybe even try to actively live in our past. There's also reclaimers, and similar to preservationists, reclaimers are the ones who want to reclaim Earth now it's been devastated. Now, depending on your setting, and how, if Earth is devastated at all and how far, reclaimers may have a different purpose in your world. But reclaimers are like, hey, Earth, we need to bring back life on Earth and make Earth the center of the galaxy, or rather our solar system yet again. But essentially making Earth the central hub of where humanity comes from. And the last two would be socialites. And in many ways, socialites are like the hedonists. It's, hey, we theoretically can live forever. Why would we do anything but delve into our own hedonistic ways, to take pleasure and push it to its extremes. The socialites would also encompass those people who are the daredevils of our society, the ones who run the fastest, climb the highest, go the farthest, pushing their bodies and their minds for no other reason than the fact that it is there. Why should I go to the center of the earth? Because it's there. Why should I climb that mountain? Because it's there. And lastly, they're the ultimates. And similarly to what I was saying with the socialites, the ultimates are the ones who want to perfect themselves in mind, body, and spirit. And in many ways, they're looked at as elites, but the ultimates are like the people who want to, because the technology exists, to push themselves to its ultimate limit, and that's how they're going to become advanced to a new society. Live and Let Die says, I can imagine a cryo museum of forks of all bunches of people from different stages of life for the preservationists. It would be cool to RP that out. You know what? Not if you're the one stuck in there, you know, but yes, absolutely. I mean, imagine, if you will, preservationists who are like going around collecting either the bodies and or the minds of like famous people or important personages, like you said, almost a museum or even a zoo of sorts, and rationalizing that, oh no, these are just copies of you, this isn't the real you, we're just going to put a copy of you into our museum and, and let it sit there and live its days out. There now, you could have a VR world where you're sticking people in it to hold them for later use, or even collecting historical records of important people to reconstruct what you think their personalities would be. And a cryo museum may even hold like these people died from this old disease. We've eliminated this disease, but take a look at who they are and their bodies and things. So yeah, you could have a strange thing on both sides. Player characters that are like trying to escape from these preservationists that think they're doing good, or player characters that are literal preservationists that are going around collecting people for like a museum of sorts of yeah, this is what humanity used to do. And people on their cell phones and things like that. It could be dark, but quite hilarious. So, okay, let's go back to the beginning. Argonauts. Argonauts are, oh, hold on. Living the Dice says, forks are creepier than VR digital avatars, makes for a good villain. you know, especially if your forks are forks of the player characters that have gone through something different and diverge, like their personalities are the same, but their experiences are different and turn down a darker path. Ego Hunter is the eclipse phase adventure where the PCs, although they're in different bodies, are playing fragments of the same personality, and they are all hunting down other fragments that have been lost and or taken and or murdered from the core personality. So you could have a game where all the pieces, if they're willing to do it, and you know, this is one of those things you got to talk to everybody, but everyone could play the same person, just different facets of the person's personality. So one PC could play their intellectual side, another PC could play their wild side, another PC could play their aggressive side, you know, another PC could play their social side, and maybe hyper focus on one event that made them who they are. But the bad guy could be a combination of all of them, because the so-called bad guy could be the primary personality that's out to eliminate the fragments, and all the fragments are like, hey, I'm an individual, I don't want to recombine back into a personality, you're trying to kill me. And the main personality, this may have been done by an enemy of the main personality, so then you have like the enemy is myself, and then yet there's another enemy. Or the main personality may have done this on purpose, for no other reason than to test their abilities, or any number of reasons. But yeah, okay, so the Argonauts are the explorers. These are the people who feel that we won't get to our next level of society until we explore further. And by exploring our solar system and then furthermore into the galaxy at large, past the Oort cloud, you know, out to Alpha Centauri and beyond, we won't learn as a species. And so the Argonauts are very much like the collectors of information. We need to learn more. We don't know something, let's learn more. That's the good side of them. They're the explorers. They're like, hey, we're colonists. We're going to, oh, we found another asteroid, let's inhabit it. Oh, we found a black hole, let's discover it. We found a quasar, let's figure out what its energy level is or something. But their dark side is that they are also very much into pushing technology to its limit. Von Neumann machines, I'm probably pronouncing it wrong. Von Neumann machines are nanotechnology that is able to replicate itself. In this setting, and in many ways, maybe even in the future, Von Neumann machines may be outlawed, because having nanotech which can grow itself in many ways can become quite dangerous if it is programmed to be very dangerous. So, you know, having nanotechnology that can replicate itself, and its job is to take, you know, physical reality and disseminate it down into like dust, would be extremely dangerous. Or nano fabricate a virus or something like that, be very dangerous. Excuse me. So the good Argonauts are explorers of the universe, and you could have quite a number of adventures, especially if you want to do a darker, more sinister Star Trek, where you have a group of PCs that maybe there's like 5 PCs, but there's only like 3 physical bodies for them to re-sleeve into. And then maybe the other 2 are like Overwatch. Maybe one person pilots a ship, and then they go from world to world, planet to planet. And that's the purpose of having the Pandora gates. You don't need an excuse to like, how did you get there? Well, you just went through a Pandora gate and arrived somewhere else. Eclipse phase suggests that the worlds you go to are not like M-class planets, the typical, hey, we're human beings and we can just walk on the surface, but more darker, far more dangerous, far more alien locations where the atmosphere is poison, the gravity is too heavy, the radiation is strong, there are creatures there that are completely alien, like, you know, the intelligent color blue, or like gaseous species, or alien species that are psychic, that you can't communicate with, or that communicate with pheromones or something like that, to truly make these places alien and dangerous and hostile. Um, Barsoomians all seem to be the most hyper focused, but would also make for a great way where the PCs are living in the outskirts of Mars. For a little historical context, the uh, Barsomes, I believe, are from a old writing about pulp fiction where beings live on Mars, and because we found canals on Mars, we assumed that there may have been a society on Mars where they traveled waterways and such. And so the Barsoomians were created in fiction. And so the people who live on Mars have kind of adopted that, and they live in the outskirts of Mars, traveling around in like tracked vehicles that might be like artificially covered to look like boulders or dirt so that people don't find them. Maybe there's the tracked vehicles have a way of obscuring their tracks as they roll around in the outback and such. These are the people that like to climb down into the 3-mile deep crevices and look for aquifers to obtain water and oxygen and such, and live off the land in many ways, living in breathing suits and thin microfiber suits to keep themselves protected from the cold. And these are also, I don't know if you would call them preservationists of sorts, but they want to keep the environment as natural as possible, so that, you know, if they end up living on an ice world, it's like, hey, let's just transform ourselves to live on an ice world with maybe thick fur, or some kind of like aquatic creatures hide, that we can survive the cold and the thin atmosphere, and we're just going to live on this world as it is, as opposed to terraforming it. Bioconservatives doesn't seem to be the go-to for PCs, because, you know, player characters tend to want to, you want the best tech, the most modification and such, but you can have, it's kind of like playing Hunter in like the White Wolf games, where you're fighting against the vampires and the werewolves of the world. The bioconservatives are the ones who are like, want to limit technology because it is dangerous. And so you could have like a world where there's just a lot of body horror and psychological horror, as people are taking technology to its extreme, such as like physically. The bioconservatives are the ones that are like, listen, technology is dangerous, technology is evil, and here's why: because people are able to engage in their darkest secrets. For example, hunting down a habitat full of pedophiles that have grown children and inserted like the cortical stacks of random people into the bodies of children, so that they can feel the horror of being abducted, chased down, and then eventually sexually assaulted or something. And then your job is to go find these people and blow them away and free their captives. There might be habitats where they find infugees, cortical stacks of people that haven't been re-sleeved in the bodies yet, and then they re-sleeve them in the bodies and hunt them down like human animals on a habitat, or some kind of like dome city or underground hab or something like that on an asteroid or whatever. And your job's to go out there and hunt down these really dark and sinister people that maybe sell memberships to go in and hunt human beings down, or to kill them, like the movie Hostel, where they just have fun torturing people and then get a tattoo afterwards because it's so fun. Yay. But yeah, some of those people probably need to die anyway. Yeah, I'm saying it. And playing PCs that are hunting down the existential threats, which is kind of what Firewall is like. You play a Sentinel and you're going after people that are harnessing black holes or nanotechnology or something like that. So yeah, while bioconservatives tend to be like the negative nannies, they're just like, we don't want to have fun with the technology. It could be fun to play them, or at least to play one individual who understands the limits of technology. Brinkers, come on, kitty, get out of there. Brinkers are the people who want to go to live on the very, very outskirts of the solar system, the Oort cloud, Pluto, its sister moon / planet, Charon, and the other places out in the dark reaches of the solar system. Now, Brinkers might be considered a little bit crazy because they're out there by themselves so much, but they also may be the oracles of this society, because it's a possibility that they may be the first contact when physical aliens come to visit Earth. And so therefore, despite being on their own and being psychologically crazy, they may actually be true in terms of, hey, we're out here, we're going to meet the aliens that come to our society first. Now, in Eclipse phase, there are aliens, known as the factors, basically a society, a intergalactic society, disproving the Fermi paradox that we haven't contacted aliens. But the contacted aliens, they suggest really make them super alien, where it's very difficult for us to communicate with them. Like I was saying before about communicating by pheromones or high frequency sound, or maybe they communicate like, if you've seen the movie Arrival, communicate in a method where they don't look at time the way we do, or they could have multiple facets of their body, so their body language communication is far more extensive than ours, or maybe they communicate through electronic signals through neurological contact or something. So anyway, come up with, if you want to include alien contact in this context, make them super alien. Like, don't make them humans with makeup, but like make them really strange. Also, there's the Exhumans. Now, in the Eclipse phase, Exhumans are kind of thought of as the bad guys in many ways, because they've pushed they're pushing evolution to its very extreme. But I can imagine player characters trying to play Exhumans where they're pushing pushing human evolution. For example, like in the television show Fringe, there was a faction that wanted to bring humanity back to its base level to become the next apex predator. There may be player characters that are looking for technology to make them more advanced, having more arms, being in different synthetic bodies, taking biological bodies and adding more and more fringe technology to modify the human body. Like, oh, I want to have modified lungs and a pancreas and modified brain and modified, adrenal glands and neural boosters and all of those kind of things, and trying to tack on and remove different technologies in and around their bodies and such. Mercurials, this one is almost a subject unto itself, of human, the rights and inclusion into humanity of rogue AI and uplifted animals. So this convergence of artificial intelligence being so intelligent that it meets the human level, or what we consider human level, as well as humanity becoming a digital thought, there may be no difference between downloading a human brain and having an AI that was programmed and created, or maybe even AI is starting to breed in many ways, there's so much data that it could collect accidentally to create AI, or what have you. And then maybe now there's no difference between the human mind and an AI because they are both digital. And then imagine downloading or basically printing a biological brain and inserting into it an AI brain. Then there really is no difference between humanity and AI. And then there's the fear of, well, what makes us human? Living Like Dice says maybe light pulses could be how they communicate. Bioluminescence would be very fun to play with as a DM. See, that's what I'm talking about, right? Like, just thinking outside the box, or not even thinking outside, but maybe like deep sea creatures using bioluminescence, light waves and light pulses as communication, and then having miscommunication, because there's going to be tons of miscommunication and frustration in trying to describe how you live versus how the other aliens live. Because one big theory is that math is the universal language, but I always thought, well, if math is universal language, how do we know that they count the same way we do, that they're going to use the same symbology? You know, we've got 5 fingers and toes and we can count to 10. Who's to say the alien has any fingers at all? They may have like a base 12 or a base 7, or they may switch between like base 3 and base 13 randomly because that's how their minds think or something. We don't know. So despite math being the quote unquote universal language, I still say that there's going to be a lot to try to figure out between our societies, because their measurement systems will be completely different if they come from like a gas world or something like that, or they're a biological society that lives on the corona of like a quasar or something. Really strange. But so uplifted animals is a weird and touchy subject as well, because as an uplifted animal like gorillas or octopi or avians or like pigs or something like that, horses or elephants or whatever you insert into your world, where do they stand as a society? You know, we human beings tend to have a big NIMBY effect. A NIMBY standing for not in my backyard. Like, it's very easy for people to say, yeah, I'm for that thing, hooray, and they raise their fist in the air until it involves someone they know or themselves or their kids or whatever. So an example would be, would it be okay to have a sexual relationship with a baboon or a gorilla? Would you, do you think you living, let's assume that we've gotten to the point where technology allows us to live essentially forever. Do you think you'd ever get to the point where you might have a sexual relationship with a gorilla, male or female, or whatever your tastes are? Would you have a relationship with a dolphin that maybe has re-sleeved into a humanoid body? Would you consider re-sleeving into an animal, an uplifted animal's body, to better facilitate your relationship, because you guys are like, hey, listen, I love this person. I'm willing to, you know, procreate with them too and have a relationship. And this is our compromise. For 6 months out of a cycle, I get into a baboon body, and then that uplifted baboon gets into a human body. And then what is their culture like? Some of us might think that uplifted culture would be their animal side brought into and uplifted into our intellectual being, meaning that like gorillas would be led by a silverback, and even though they would be intelligent and maybe live in their own habitats or whatnot, they would still have this idea of having the silverback being the primary male and being surrounded by, you know, taking care of a tribe of females or whatnot. Or an uplifted pig may still want to cool itself off by, you know, getting into mud or something like that, or water or what have you. Or an uplifted avian would still want to lay eggs and eat bird food, but still would be intelligent. Or there's the idea that they would just take on human characteristics. They look animalistic, but they just walk and sound and do human things. They wear clothing, they go to work every day, they like to play, you know, zero-G football. Yeah, go team. You know, maybe that's what they are. Or lastly, maybe they want to, uh, maybe there's something far more primal in them. So, for example, like an uplifted feline, like a tiger or a lion, maybe in their habitat, they have these small little jungle areas where they get to hunt and kill prey to experience their more primal side. You know, maybe they're far more violent, or they have it's possibility that the uplifts have undesired social activities. For example, they may want to fling their poo at you, and it's no big deal, or, you know, drink each other's piss, and we may find that to be undesirable, but amongst themselves, it's no big deal. It may be a social thing to pick through, you know, another primate's hair to get ticks or something, because that's just what you do. Or eat ants by out of the ground with a stick, and enjoy eating them with your other fellow baboons or whatever, that kind of thing. So yes, there's a possibility that uplifts what their culture is and where they get it from. Do they want to merge with human beings and be accepted? Do they want to live separately? Is there more of uplift racism? You're nothing but an animal, or you'll never be one of us. Would uplifts try to hide their nature? And, you know, if you're an uplifted octopi, you want to keep your octopi biological body somewhere else, but no one knows it, and you walk around in a human body, that kind of thing. There's also Nano-Ecologists. These are like the terraformers. If you want to play role play more of a psychological, more intellectual kind of game, where you are representing a group of maybe scientists and explorers, and you got to have some weaponry too, just in case that you're going to different planetary locations and terraforming it slowly, i.e. you can live forever, eventually, with the idea of cortical stacks and being able to grow biological bodies, and also having synthetic bodies that you can live for a long time. So you could terraform certain locations, and so that humanity can follow you out. And being a colonist, being an explorer might be the type of game that people want to have. And then now you're able to even, hell, you can even bring your cell phones to the table, and, you know, look up things on your phone as if the phone was implanted in your head, and then kind of merge that with your gaming group or something. That might be kind of different. Not sure how much you would have to use the environment as the new challenge, as opposed to maybe enemies. Although there might be people who are like eco-terrorists that don't want you terraforming, or fights with, like, maybe conflicts with corporate entities that want to use the moons and asteroids you're trying to terraform, or the new planets that are outside of our own solar system. And so corporate entities might want to take over where you're at, or even political factions or military bases may want to move in, or mercenary groups might want to move in, and you're just trying to preserve this for the whole, and they may think you're like evil, like, what, you want to give this away for free? You're an asshole, you know, that kind of thing. Preservationists might be a really great thing to role play for people who want to preserve ancient cultures. So you might want to, you know, a PC might want to be a samurai and live and act in this futuristic world as a medieval samurai or cowboy or knight or pirate or ninja or something of that nature, and try to preserve that information, or gather that information that might be lost, lost languages, lost fashions, finding antiques and things of that nature, trying to preserve old artwork, or even preserve what we would consider to be humanistic endeavors, such as music and art, even that being made today, where some people may say, no, we need to advance past the need for art or music or entertainment or things of that nature. And you may be a person or part of a group that's trying to preserve that knowledge for the future. And of course, being a preservationist, you might have your own zoo or work for a cryo museum that's like maybe Earth, maybe the entire Earth is like a giant museum, and you're trying to piece together everything that should be there, including gathering the copies of the cortical stacks of all the people that left Earth, so you could repopulate Earth with copies of everyone that's gone. All 12,338,562 people and counting. Reclaimers are the people who want to restore Earth back to its final glory. Maybe the people in your setting they think of Earth as basically like a dump. Like people have lived long enough away from Earth that, like, why would you live in a place where the temperature changes randomly and the air blows funny, and you never know what you're going to breathe into your system? I mean, that's odd. Like, yeah, you can't control the temperature, and like water falls out of the sky randomly. Sometimes it's frozen and the winds collect together and turn into spirals. Why would you live there? The ground shakes oddly and spews forth lava and molten earth. That doesn't make any sense. That's a dangerous place. I mean, there's barely any land to live on. It's mostly water. Why would you live there? Yeah, there may be people who live in other habitats that don't want to live under a large sky like that. They may be maybe people that live in habitats have a little sense of agoraphobia, and they don't even know it because they go from hab to hab, dome city to spindle to O'Neill cylinder, not understanding that really they've got a cultural agoraphobic thing about being under a giant open sky and worried about the radiation that might hit them, or the moisture clouds that might drop bolts of electromagnetic lightning down on top of them. It's like, Earth is kind of weird. Like, why would you want to live there? Also there's socialites. If you'd like to play a game in which the people there's more social interaction, Game of Thrones style, you could absolutely do that in Eclipse phase, and maybe even in your own setting where in a post-scarce society that, what would people do when they have everything at their fingertips? You can print off pretty much anything you want or need. There's no shortage of food or clothing or places to live. So maybe the next value is the social hierarchy, like the climbing the social ladder and doing that kind of thing. Jared says, I can imagine that a new element or physical law of the universe might be found on a faraway planet. It'd be a good point mixing up sci-fi ideas with a new frontier sort of setting. So, there's like there are plenty of theoretical things, such as like not, I don't want to say such as, but the abundant use of antimatter, harnessing black holes, chaos theory, new dimensions, being able to manipulate gravity, going into like a psionic world or things like that. There might be a possibility that the Fermi paradox exists because the laws of physics are different outside of our solar system, and therefore there might be other aliens. For example, if you've watched the show Orville, or you've read the book Flat World, on a television show Orville, they ended up accidentally finding a world where it was two-dimensional, and the two-dimensional beings could not see the entirety of three-dimensional people. So imagine, if you will, a three-dimensional ball. You have a round orb, and a three-dimensional ball goes into a two-dimensional space. The people who live in two dimensions think, as the ball goes into their space, that the circle gets bigger and bigger, and then starts to shrink down in amongst itself, and they've never seen that before. Whereas the ball can look down on a two-dimensional space and see everything. So what if we, in the three-dimensional space, encounter a four-dimensional space? Maybe time moves at a different rate, space moves at a different rate. You could go towards like movies like Jumper, or The Butterfly Effect, or any kind of time travel, time space manipulation, and you could have fun with that. And just like, hey, in this other galaxy, just thinking about teleporting where you want to is no big thing. And then maybe there are enemies, and the humans that go there, or humanity that travels there, is just like, what the hell's going on? And you could have a a running chase as they're transporting themselves from place to place. Excuse me. Maybe it's no big thing to become, energy. These aliens are just like, hey, the physical laws here, you can go from physical form to an energy form and back again. I don't know why. Why isn't it that way for you guys? You guys are limited. So yes, absolutely, you can play with those sci-fi ideas. It could be a time limit. So maybe there's a alien race that's only in sync every few moments, but according to the alien race, hundreds of years pass by. So every 5 minutes, you come in sync with this alien race, and you've met the alien race before, and then, like on the show Orville, their interactions, all of a sudden, these people deified one member of the crew because hundreds of years have passed by, even though it's only a couple of minutes for you. Yeah, you can play with tons of those ideas. And lastly would be the Ultimates. The Ultimates faction are about perfecting themselves. And like, I always thought it would be cool to have a PC that escapes being imprisoned, goes on the run, is being hunted down, and come to find out that it really is just you who has imprisoned copies of yourself, to imprison them, to torture them, to run them through horrific gambits, simply because to make yourself tougher by escaping and then killing yourself and then taking over the project by passing on to the next legacy, so that the one that escaped now is continuing the experiment to torture oneself to see who becomes the toughest, which is just yourself. But anyway, yes, the Ultimates are the ones who want to perfect their mind, body, and spirit. So you can have like maybe like a Paragon conflicts, where there are these like random martial arts fights around the solar system, where you get into these like backroom brawls that are videotaped and broadcast or something, or exploring the deepest crevices and the highest mountains, or pushing yourself to the limits of like having very thin membranes, but doing like re-entry surfing or something of that nature, or what have you. So yeah, I just thought I'd go over some factions and kind of what their purpose would be in pushing humanity forward, because it could be that someone just thinks this way on their own. They don't care about politics, but it also could be that these socio-political movements might be something that a player character or like the NPCs are trying to push humanity towards. And of course, you're probably going to have plenty of habitats where the player characters are going to visit that habitat, and you're going to have this like kind of like ingrown breeding with your cousin kind of thing, where some people are just really hyper focused on one element of like humanity, such as splitting their personalities and blending with AI, or interbreeding with each other and bringing back the Neanderthal and the growing Neanderthals, or like a habitat where they've given up their cortical stacks, and they just want to live here and die peacefully as old humans did. And there is no technology. They're just farmers, and they're wild animals, and they've gone back to where medicine is just like the Wild West or something in the States. And it's a hollowed out asteroid, and they just have wild animals, and they're just farmers, and they don't want anything else. You know, you could have all kinds of habitats, and maybe the player characters are a combination of all of the other factions, and instead of being like enforcers, maybe they are trying to unite humanity under one umbrella with all these different and divergent belief systems or political systems or experimental systems. So anyway, I'm DBJ. Just thought I'd do one of these videos. If you guys have an idea as well, I will be putting all the details. Right now, the details are not in the comments, just in front of the comment section, but I'll put all the details below there. If you have a question or something like that you want me to answer, you can go on a Discord. I haven't been pushing the Discord, but it's a great place to organize everything. The comment section of YouTube really sucks. Sometimes I can, and sometimes I can't get them on my phone when I'm at work. But anyway, thanks for joining me. If you're a real big fan of Eclipse Phase, spread the word around. I'm self-admittedly, I'm not a fan of the rule system per se. I don't mind it, but it's not my favorite. Because I personally find it clunky, because I'm a little bit of a rules like hippie, but I still think the setting is worth every penny. You know, I've got the inner system book, the outer system book, Panopticon. Like, I've got those books. I've got my Eclipse Phase book here with me. I think it's worth every penny. So anyway, guys, thank you for joining me. Everyone who's listening or watching or whatever, or watch later on, thank you very much for patronizing me, both sarcastically and actually. Guys, have another one. Jared says, another classy stream. Thanks for the stream of consciousness. Have a good morning, man. Yeah, thanks, guys. Yeah, absolute stream of consciousness. Don't hesitate to interact with me. And if anybody out there wants to join in live, like, we can go like do a back and forth like the Eclipse Phase Friday. And you don't have to be a fan of the game, but if you are really into like these bigger ideals or something like that, just ping me or whatever. Who said I want to pronounce your name correctly? Marek Tarnowski. Please tell me I'm saying it, because I'm goddamn lazy tongue. I hate butchering people's names, but I want to give people thanks for giving me a thanks. So guys, thank you very much. Yes, Monday through Friday stream of consciousness. That's who I am. That's who I am. So sorry about that if you prefer something shorter. That's just not me. So have a very good day. I'll see you guys Monday.